Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my Week 15 recap and lineup review. Looking at my Week 15 lineups on DraftKings and on Yahoo. I was traveling this week, so I only played 3 lineups on DraftKings. I still did play my 10 lineups on Yahoo that I always play. They did have that $1 million contest, so I wanted to make sure I could get 10 lineups in there. I think they're running the contest again for Week 16. $1 million prize pool, 250K in overlay, so I'll be back in that next week, hopefully with a better performance, because this week was not great. Just didn't hit on a lot of good plays, missed on some of the better plays. There were guys like similarly priced, for example, like FOURNETTE and Dalvin Cook. I ran a lot of FOURNETTE, wasn't on Dalvin Cook, and I knew that was really just like the beginning to a bad day when I played FOURNETTE over Cook. FOURNETTE, 9 DraftKings points, Cook had like 30-something, so that really sucked. Did the same thing on Yahoo. I think Cook and FOURNETTE were like the same price on Yahoo, and pretty much any opportunity where I had to play one of those guys, I went with FOURNETTE. Didn't play any Dalvin Cook. So pretty bad week, but we'll talk about my lineups. We'll go over it. We'll look at my 10 lineups on Yahoo, my 3 lineups on DraftKings, and then at the end, we will take a look at the Showdown slate for Monday Night Football. Game between the Panthers and Saints. Should be a really fun game. Great game for fantasy, a lot of good options. So we'll go through the player pool in this Showdown slate, talk about some roster constructions, how we want to build a lineup. But let's start off with the 3 lineups on DraftKings. Like I said, I was traveling this week, so I wasn't going to be at my computer Sunday morning. Wasn't going to be able to generate my 150 lineups. Wasn't going to be able to max enter. So I just played 3 lineups in 3 max contests, and it wasn't great. Really only had 1 lineup that was able to squeak into some cash. I think it cashed in some of the lower stakes 3 max stuff I played. Didn't cash in the higher stake. That was this lineup right here that put up 130. It was a Brady to Edelman stack with Zeke, Joe Mixon, Jalen Samuels, T.Y. Hilton, Sterling Shepard, Vernon Davis, and the Bucks D. This week I just missed on a lot of plays. I did play Joe Mixon in all 3 of these lineups, which was really good. Joe Mixon was kind of a clear play for me as the week started to go on. Just seeing Joe Mixon at 6,100 against the Raiders, he just made so much sense. He was way too cheap. Joe Mixon just getting so much work. 26 carries against the Chargers, 6 targets. Against Oakland, 27 carries, 4 targets, 30 DraftKings points. Joe Mixon was just too cheap. If he was like 7,500, 8K, would have been a much different story. But at 6,100, he was one of the clear plays, in my opinion. As the week started to go on, just fell in love with Joe Mixon on DraftKings. Played him in all 3 of these lineups, so that was a good way to go. But like I said, I did play Zeke in 2 of the 3. Zeke really wasn't great. He was okay with 18 DraftKings points, but not what you want when you're paying 9K plus for one of your expensive running backs. So Zeke wasn't really a guy you had to have this week. I thought he was going to be a guy you had to have, but that wasn't the case. And then Leonard Fournette, I played on 2 of my 3 lineups, and he was just a big disappointment. He had like 14 or 15 touches after the first half. He was doing great when it comes to workload. I knew Fournette was going to be a guy that was going to get massive work, especially if the Jaguars were playing from ahead. They were just going to feed the ball to Fournette. But when the second half started, it looks like they sort of benched him, I think. I think he only got 1 carry in the second half. He did break off like a 25-yard run at the start of the 4th quarter, but that was the only touch he got at all in the second half. They were just giving work to other guys, which is pretty annoying. Fournette only got 14 touches. I was expecting him to get at least 25 touches, possibly even 30 if the Jaguars were playing from ahead. So Fournette was a really big disappointment for me this week. I got on him a lot as the week started to go on. Just did not do well. At quarterback, I really loved that Steelers Patriots game, so I played Brady in 2 lineups, played Roethlisberger in 1, had Roethlisberger to AB stack, and then had Brady as by himself in this lineup, and then in the lineup that was able to squeak into some cash, I had Brady to Edelman. I did like a lot of plays in that game. Brady, Roethlisberger, obviously. I liked AB a lot, got some Julian Edelman. I didn't love Edelman at his price tag on DK, but I still felt like he was a pretty decent option. AB I loved if I could find a way to fit him in. In this lineup, I did find a way. I went Fournette, DJ, and Joe Mixon. Kind of avoided Zeke in this lineup, so that allowed me to pay up for Ben and AB. But the value plays I hit on, or the value plays I played at least, were not good at all. Chris Godwin, after coming off a 10-target game, obviously a much tougher spot here against the Ravens. Only saw 3 targets, did not catch any pass at all, so got a donut from Chris Godwin. Did play him in a few lineups on Yahoo as well, so that was really disappointing. Felt like after coming off a 10-target week, we were going to see Godwin be a little bit more efficient, be able to connect on some of those targets. He only got 3 targets and didn't catch any of them. Sterling Shepard, another guy who I liked a lot as a value receiver when we got the news Odell was out. I felt like Sterling Shepard, especially at his price on DK, was going to be a really good option. He did get 9 targets, so the volume was there, but only caught 2 of his 9 targets for 37 yards. So it wasn't very efficient, kind of like Godwin last week, just wasn't very efficient. And then Anthony Firkser, I don't even know if he got targeted. 0 DraftKings points, did not get targeted at all. He was expected to see an increased workload. Jonnu Smith and Delaney Walker both out, and Firkser did not get targeted at all. So that's really annoying. Cheap tight end busting. Seems like this happens almost every week. Firkser and Vernon Davis were the only two tight ends I played, which was a big mistake. But I didn't like paying up for tight end this week. I wanted to fit in as many expensive running backs as I could. So I need to go cheap at receiver. I need to go cheap at tight end. Vernon Davis, another guy that just didn't do well. Only got 3 targets, 2 catches for 16 yards. Really, I'm not even surprised Vernon Davis had a bad game. With his price tag, would have allowed me to do at other positions. I felt like he could at least get me enough points to where it wouldn't be that bad of a play at 3,200. But 3.6 DK points, not going to cut it. It was just a really weird week where a lot of the value plays just didn't do well. D.D. Westbrook got 13 DK points, but 6 of those points came off a punt return. So if he doesn't get that punt return, he probably has a bad week as well. He only had 3 catches for 21 yards and a 20-yard carry. But that punt return he had for a touchdown kind of saved his week, putting him at 13 DK points. I guess he was kind of one of the better receivers for value-wise because a lot of the value receivers did poorly. And then defense, I've tried to punt as much as I could. Usually never pay up for defense. 49ers defense was stone minimum, 2K. I think there was projected to be some bad weather in that game, so I felt like the 49ers could at least get some pressure on Russell Wilson, maybe force some turnovers. They did put up 9 points. I think they got a punt return or a kick return for a touchdown, which kind of saved their day. Giants at home against the Titans was probably a fish play, but I like the Giants D here. Titans offense have been sort of up and down all year. Felt like this was one of those spots where the Titans were just going to really struggle, and Derrick Henry just ran all over the Giants. Giants defense was a bad play, and same with the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers defense kind of fit this lineup. I know there was projected to be some bad weather in that game as well. Lamar Jackson, since he scrambles so much, felt like he was at least prone to maybe taking some sacks, maybe taking some fumbles. Buccaneers defense did put up 7 points. Really, the defense you wanted this week was the Falcons. Probably should have played more of the Falcons defense than I did. I did play them in a few lineups on Yahoo, but on DraftKings, just stuck to these 3 defenses right here. So pretty bad week on DraftKings. Lineups did not do good. But let's move over to Yahoo now. In the Yahoo big tournament, the $1 Million Baller, I only cashed 1 out of 10. Was not a great week. I was actually doing pretty good until that Sunday night football game started. I didn't have anybody in the Sunday night game besides this one lineup where I had Zach Ertz. All my other lineups were done, and after that Sunday night game, a lot of my lineups that were cashing did not manage to cash in the end. But this lineup did hold with a 128. Had Lamar Jackson just by himself, then ran Joe Mixon, Fournette, T.Y., Julian Edelman, A.B., Zach Ertz, Jalen Samuels, and Falcons D. Next lineup, played a lot of Joe Mixon on Yahoo. You'll see he was way too cheap. He was 45% owned. A lot of people were on him. But I just felt like he was a really good play. I thought David Johnson was a little bit too cheap as well. Him and Fournette were the same price. I ran a lot of lineups where I had DJ, Fournette, and Joe Mixon because they were all way too cheap in my opinion. That allowed me to pay up. I felt really good about this lineup here. Brady to Edelman stack with DJ, Fournette, and Mixon. Really good running back core. You got a good quarterback with a good stack with Edelman. Was able to run it back with Juju Smith-Schuster. Was able to get T.Y. in there. Evan Ingram as a cheap tight end, still was able to fit in the Jaguars D. I felt like going into this week, this was going to be one of my better lineups, and it definitely didn't turn out that way. Brady wasn't great. Obviously, Fournette sucked. Juju Smith-Schuster got 10 targets, but was not very efficient. Just 4 catches for 40 yards. Just that game, the Steelers-Patriots game, didn't really go like I thought it was going to. Projected to be a shootout, and just a 10-17 game when you're very high on that game is going to lead to probably a bad week. But let's move on to the next lineup. Had a Cousins to Dig stack with Mixon, Fournette, Edelman, A.B., George Kittle, Samuels, and Giants D. Played a lot of the Giants D on Yahoo. I think they were min price, or they were like $1 more than minimum price. Played a lot of Julian Edelman as well. Julian Edelman was way too cheap. He was like the same price as like Tyler Boyd, I think, and I just felt like Edelman was a much better play over guys like Tyler Boyd. Edelman, 12.5 fantasy points was okay, but I was expecting a better game out of him. Thought he could at least get in the end zone at least once. But next lineup was another Brady to Edelman stack with Zeke, Fournette. Had Godwin in this lineup with his donut, Juju Smith-Schuster, Evan Ingram, Joe Mixon, and the Falcons D. Next lineup was a Luck to T.Y. stack with David Johnson, Fournette, Cooper, Julian Edelman, Gronk, Joe Mixon, and 49ers D. Next lineup, Tom Brady to Julian Edelman again with DJ, Fournette, Amari Cooper, AB, Vernon Davis, Joe Mixon, and Giants defense. Lamar Jackson, David Johnson, Fournette, Cooper, Edelman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kittle, Mixon, and Giants D. As you can see, Johnson, Fournette, Mixon, those were the guys I really was high on Yahoo. They were okay, at least DJ and Mixon were okay, but Fournette just really killed my week on Yahoo. If I played Dalvin Cook over Fournette in all these lineups, I'd probably cash at least half of these lineups, if not more. That's like a 21-point swing playing Cook over Fournette, but just fell in love with Fournette as the week went on, especially with his price on Yahoo. But next lineup was Brady to Edelman again with Elliott, Fournette, Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Vernon Davis, Joe Mixon, and Bills D. And then my last two lineups, both were pretty bad. This was a Big Ben to Juju Smith-Schuster stack. My only lineup with Saquon. He was 35% owned, was not very high on him, only played him in one lineup. But had him in this one with Fournette, Adam Humphries, Julian Edelman, Vernon Davis, Mixon, and Giants D. And then my last lineup, worst one out of all of them, was a Brady to Edelman stack with Zeke, Fournette, Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Vernon Davis, DJ, and Giants D. So those are it for my Yahoo lineups. Hopefully I will be able to perform better next week in the $1 Million Baller. They're doing it again for Week 16. If you guys want to get in there, I highly recommend you get in there. It's going to have $250K in overlay, potentially even more. My referral link down in the description if you want to join. Would love to see you guys in there. Hopefully I'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards, along with some of my lineups. Hopefully can perform better next week. But let's take a look at the Showdown slate now for Monday Night Football. We're going to really quickly go over this since I'm already recording for about 12 minutes. Don't want to take too much time. So let's start off at the top of the player pool. We have a lot of studs in this game. You got Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, Cam, Kamara. We're going to want to pay up for at least one of these guys, if not two. I think the guy that's probably my favorite is Christian McCaffrey. It's not the best matchup for him. The Saints are a very good run defense. They do a really good job at stopping the run. With how much work McCaffrey gets, with how he's involved in the passing game, I don't really care about the matchup. I think McCaffrey's most likely going to be one of the highest scorers on this Showdown slate, if not the top scorer. So we're going to want to try and find a way to get him into our lineups. It might be hard to play him in our captain spot because he's really expensive. We'll look at some cheaper plays that could potentially open up some salary. So let's start off with a McCaffrey build in our captain, see what that allows us to do. Probably going to be hard to fit in another stud with McCaffrey in our captain. But let's go ahead and try and look for some value that we could play, potentially. Maybe a guy like JARIUS WRIGHT, 2,400, could definitely be a value play. He doesn't get a ton of targets, but he gets about 3 to 5 targets a game. If he gets into the end zone on a Showdown slate, that's usually good enough when you're this cheap. I think him as a potential value play could definitely be a way we go. You obviously have the kickers, but usually don't want to play a kicker unless I'm forced to. Same with the defense. I know Ian Thomas saw a lot of looks last week. He got 11 targets against the Browns, 9 catches for 77 yards. He's been a lot more involved lately with Greg Olsen out. So Ian Thomas at 4,800, another value play we could potentially consider. Going to the Saints side, looking for value on their side. Mark Ingram's only 7,200. I wouldn't say he's a value, but maybe a little bit underpriced. We do have Tre'Quan Smith as well at 5,400. He's been really disappointing the last 2 weeks, has not caught any passes the last 2 weeks, really hasn't been involved either. He's a much more risky option than some of the other guys, but still we know the kind of upside that Tre'Quan Smith has. If you want to go to him, I could see using him. Ben Watson, don't think he's really been involved. Yeah, you're just praying for Ben Watson to get in the end zone if you roster him. Probably would rather play Thomas or go down to JARIUS WRIGHT rather than play Ben Watson. Kirkwood, I don't think he's seeing many targets lately, just about 2 to 3 targets the last few games. Really, when it comes to the passing game for the Saints, it's just been all Michael Thomas, all Kamara. Those are the guys getting the most looks, and obviously the guys you want to target, but you could get somebody in the end zone score, like a Tre'Quan Smith, a Ben Watson could potentially score for the Saints. But I think looking at value, we probably want to go to the Panthers side, I think a guy like JARIUS Wright at 2,400 could definitely be a value play. He's going to allow us to pay up for potentially another stud. We might be able to get Breeze and Kamara in there. Let's just see if we can play Breeze and Kamara going to JARIUS Wright. If you do play Breeze and Kamara, that leaves you 5K remaining per player. That would allow you to play Ian Thomas at 4,800. You'd be just short of getting to Traquan Smith, so don't know if we want to go with Thomas because we'd be leaving a lot of salary on the table. Maybe if you go to a guy like Kirkwood, take a flyer on him. That would allow you to get up to Curtis Samuel, who's actually been seeing a lot of decent work lately. 8 targets last week against Cleveland, 11 targets the week before that against Tampa Bay. Devin Funchess has not looked good for the Panthers lately. It's been DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel getting most of the looks. So Curtis Samuel at 6,400 is for sure in play. If you want to plug him in, you still have $600 remaining. You could upgrade. You could upgrade from Kirkwood to one of the kickers. You could upgrade to the defense if you want to do that. But I don't mind this lineup at all. It's sort of like a cashy lineup where you got a lot of good guys with high floors. You do have some ceiling as well. McCaffrey obviously has a high ceiling. Breeze has a ceiling. Kamara has a ceiling. Curtis Samuel has shown some upside. Kirkwood and Wright are not the highest ceiling plays, but are still guys that are going to get some looks, going to get some targets, and they're going to be on the field, which is really what you're looking for in these showdown slates. So I do like that lineup quite a bit. If we want to go cheaper at captain, I think some of the good cheap captain options are potentially DJ Moore, Mark Ingram. I think these are cheaper captain options that are in play. I don't think there's really any punt captains I would want to look to. It's probably going to be a guy like Mark Ingram or DJ Moore for me as a cheaper captain. Let's go with Mark Ingram at 10-8. If we're banking on him having a good game, that's probably going to lead to him running the ball a lot, which could potentially mean the Panthers are playing from behind. So I say we want to stack maybe McCaffrey with Cam. I know Cam's dealing with like some shoulder injuries, and I'm scared to roster him here. The Panthers have already talked about like shutting him down for the rest of the year, especially if they get eliminated from the playoffs. So Cam could potentially be a more of a risky option. If you want to get up to Breeze, I don't mind that. But since we went with Ingram in our captain, and we're banking on him having a good game, we probably want to stack the Panthers when it comes to their passing game. So that's why I went McCaffrey, Newton. Could definitely go down to JARIUS Wright as well at 2,400. We could potentially get in another stud from the Saints. If you wanted to play Michael Thomas at 11K, that would leave you enough for Ben Watson, who you could go to. If you want to play Drew Brees, you wouldn't have enough for Ian Thomas. I would love to get Ian Thomas in there, but definitely short. Could play Kamara, though. You could go Ingram and Kamara. That would leave you 5,800. That would leave you enough for either Funchess or Smith. Don't love Funchess because he's really not been involved lately. But Traquan Smith, another guy, hasn't been involved as well. But Funchess and Smith both have upside, but probably not the guys I want to go to. So let's take out Kamara. If we went with a guy like DJ Moore, then you're probably getting a little bit too much of Panthers, so you're not really getting enough Saints. I think the best way to go is probably to play Breeze and Ben Watson, honestly, because if you got 3 Panthers, a 3 passing game from the Panthers, or 3 sides of the passing game from the Panthers, probably want some sides of the Saints as well. So if Ingram puts up like a 2-touchdown game, obviously Breeze is probably not throwing for 3 touchdowns, but still a guy that brings you a high floor and a high ceiling, even if Ingram doesn't do that well. And Ingram is involved in the passing game. He could catch a few touchdowns from Drew Brees. Would not be surprised at all. So I do like that lineup playing Breeze with Watson and Ingram. You got a lot of studs in here. You got McCaffrey, Newton, and Breeze all in one lineup. All guys with massive ceilings. And you still have $600 to work with as well if you wanted to upgrade. You could upgrade from Breeze to Michael Thomas. You could upgrade, let's see. I don't know if you could get anything from JARIUS Wright. I guess you could upgrade from JARIUS Wright to Kirkwood, but I probably would rather play JARIUS Wright there. So I think that's probably it for the showdown slate, guys. Like I said, it's going to be quick. Just going over the slate real quickly. My favorite studs to pay up for are probably McCaffrey, then Breeze, then Thomas, then Kamara, then Newton. Don't love Newton here, but still a guy that you obviously have to, or at least has to be in your consideration, has to be in your player pool. But definitely not my favorite. I think my favorite is McCaffrey. And then talking about mid-tier plays, value plays, favorite mid-tier plays are definitely DJ Moore and Mark Ingram. Those are really the only mid-tier plays, but obviously like those guys a lot. And then looking at value, under 5K, I think Ian Thomas is a really good option. Kirkwood as well, if you want to go to him. Definitely like JARIUS Wright as a punt play at 2,400. But I think that's it for the showdown slate, guys. I think that is it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the recap, and hopefully you did enjoy some quick analysis of the showdown slate. If you did enjoy, just make sure you click that like button before you get out of here. Make sure you subscribe as well. If you do have any questions, you can always leave them down in the comment section below, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. But yeah, guys, good luck tonight. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.